Welcome to the Bagland Podcast. This is Bagland DP, where we discuss politics, tech, and tangibles. We got Brother Solomon here from South Minneapolis. It's been a while. I was pulling up a lot of these articles that we're going to go through. We're going to spend a lot of time on this tonight, going through withering detailed analysis that most people here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, is not going to go to. And I was taken aback just a little bit when I just typed in the word Rico Minneapolis in YouTube, just trying to get some video. And one of the things that I found out is they got video after video after video. And I thought about when they were talking about the federal initiative some time ago. And I really wasn't putting all the pieces together. But remember, we talked about this maybe a year ago, like, oh, they're going to start cracking down. I don't think we expected this. I'm going to play something for you, and then we're going to go from video to video, from article to article, because there's all different kinds of articles that they're sprinkling in all types of different information. So I'm going to start off with this one right here. This one is 10 minutes long. We're not going to go through the whole thing, of course, but this is just WCCO CBS Minnesota. Listen to this. Fair use, YouTube, fair use.
Violent street gangs in Minneapolis. This afternoon, federal officials provided an update and say it's part of the federal violent crime strategy. Take a look at what federal and local officials had to say.
1 year ago today, we announced a new federal violent crime initiative to address the unprecedented level of violent crime in our cities. The initiative had three components. First, all prosecutors in this office would handle violent crime cases. Second, we would prosecute all adult violent carjackings. And third, we would form a gang unit to focus on violent gangs in Minneapolis. This afternoon, we are announcing the arrest and indictment of 45 members and associates of two violent street gangs. Over the last 48 hours, ATF and FBI agents working alongside local and federal law enforcement brought these gang members into federal custody. The defendants are charged with crimes ranging from participating in a criminal organization under RICO to using firearms in furtherance of murder and drug trafficking.
Now, before we go along, for those that do not know what the RICO is, I'm going to go to another section. Now, pay attention, Minneapolis and St. Paul. Now, the RICO, referred as the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act. Now, quite simply, given the history of this country, they shouldn't even be able to use a RICO against foundationals. Now, you're going to probably ding me on this. People are going to say, well, why the hell would you say something like that? Because this was used for the mob. But see, what they're doing here is they use it for organized crime families, because a lot of the crime families would pay the cops and the judges off. You get somebody like the Colombo crime family, or you get somebody like, you had folks like Sammy the Bull and shit like that. They're like, okay, these mob bosses was going to start knocking folks off. So they said, okay, we're going to have to come up with something to do with these Italians. That's what we don't understand about the RICO. Because every time when the RICO comes up, the face of the RICO is going to be Young Thug. I'm not going to let that happen. I'm not saying Young Thug was a saint. But the face of the RICO is black folks. No, let's go back to why the RICO was created. It had nothing to do with black folks. These were crime families, organized crime families. Most Negroes nowadays ain't got nothing organized. You got a couple niggas out the hood that might smoke a couple blunts. They might shoot a nigga or two. And that's really what you got. And now you have a RICO. But as the guy said, this is U.S. Attorney Andrew Luger. We are now addressing gang violence for what it is, organized criminal activity, which means, and you remember, when they call a black person a gang, that's one or two people. It ain't what people thinking of, oh, well, this is the Broadway gangsters from South Central, and this is GDs from Chicago, and they got this, and they got that going on, and this block is, no. They're basically saying it's one or two Negroes. R. Kelly, they only use one. They used the RICO on him, and he's only one person. So one or two Negroes, one or two black people that's committing a crime is now called organized criminal activity. Now, listen to what they said here in this article at Star Tribune. This is the first one. Y'all mind my allergies pretty bad. Of the 45 defendants, either linked to the Highs or the Bloods, 30 charged across 2 indictments and 15 other members are being charged in separate documents with drug and gun crimes. Lugar said those charged engaged in a brutal and unrelenting trail of violence spanning multiple years, with membership of the gang swelling since the 2020 onset of the COVID-19 pandemic and unarrested following the George Floyd murder. So they're already setting up the narrative. Hey, we getting payback on you niggas. See, George Floyd costed us $30 million. We putting some Negroes in jail. Now, they said 24 shooting victims, a blend of targeted murders and bystanders who survived, are referenced in the charges with the shootings. So they went back and they probably got a bunch of these people that got shot and said, look, man, who shot you? Man, that nigga right over there. The Justice Department's Organized Crime and Gang Section is assisting with the prosecution. And investigators from the Minneapolis Police Department has been embedded within the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota. Wednesday's announcement arrived on the 1-year anniversary of Lugar launching a coordinated effect to crack down on guns, drugs, and carjacking. So they're putting it all in one. Now let's go back to what this guy says.
Today's announcement marks a fundamental change in how we address gang violence. Starting with these charges, we are prosecuting street gangs as the criminal organizations they are. The charges we announced today are a significant step forward in our effort to reduce violent crime in Minneapolis. For the past year, we, together, have been carefully and deliberately building these cases against the criminal organizations that are Minneapolis street gangs.
Now, you told me the other day, we had this conversation earlier today. You said they've been had the evidence in investigations. This isn't new. They've been doing this for years.
Oh, yeah, they've been watching these kids for a long time.
You said over a year. He said a year. This is much. They had to have done this well over a year. And I'm going to give you the proof of your evidence. You made that statement. Now, let me see here.
Yeah, they don't waste their time. The feds and these, anytime you hear the word Rico, there's been extensive research that's went into that.
Listen to this. The killings include a 2020 shootout, and this is back at AP News, that left one person dead at the 200 Club in North Minneapolis. That I never fucked with that club. That club is off the chain. It's always been off the chain. That club.
What's it called?
The 200 Club in North Minneapolis. That's right off of Broadway.
Oh yeah.
That club. It's a guarantee you gonna get into a situation you get over there. But it's been like that for well over 15 years. Well over 15 years. When I was in my early 20s, that club was off the hook. There was a fatal shooting in Uptown. According to the indictments, the Highs have existed since 2008. It was 2008. I was just starting my IT career, and have numerous subsets. New members are expected to put in work, which Lugar said generally means shooting people. The Bloods have been around for decades and have 2 subsets, the Rolling 30 Bloods and Outlaws. Their new recruits are expected to fight, shoot, or make money for the gang through drug sales. He declined to give membership estimates or say how many more could face charges. Now, for those that don't know, Rolling 30's been around for a long time. They've had a long stamp and a reputation in the city. And I remember in the early 90s, they used to kind of get into it with everybody. And, you know, they weren't a very liked set. I'll say that. People had a lot of disdain for the Bloods. They just didn't like them. And they stick together. So they had enemies all over the entire city. You know. So, and it could have been, I'm not sure exactly why, but there was a lot of, you know, I remember even when I used to be in school and when I was in teenagers, I used to hear dudes make derogatory comments about them and stuff like that. And when I met some of the members and stuff like that, when I was young, I said, well, the guys seem like they all right. They pretty cool. But they wasn't to be played with. But I do remember a time where guys used to say stuff, well, man, we don't like them. Why don't you like them? They never could really say why. But they were known. They were known. If you messed with them, it was going to be a major problem. So
Right.
they've been looking at them for a long time. But it looks like the main thing is the murders and the shootings. Okay, hold on now. Okay, look at this. The RICO is the heart of the case. Prosecutors are required to prove that the gangs are criminal enterprises. That's easy for them to do that. And that members participate through a pattern of racketeering that can include everything from state crimes such as assaults, robberies, murders, and federal violent crimes. So they're rolling up any crime you do, and they're saying it's kind of like the gang injunctions in LA. The gang injunctions are pretty much white supremacist laws that say, hey, listen, you from the rolling 60s. Oh, it doesn't matter if you're a 60 or not. You live in the rolling 60s, and you're sitting there talking to 60s. Therefore, we can hit you with a gang injunction. So they could take the whole entire neighborhood and say, hey, all right, you're a young black male. I think you're a part of the rolling 60s. So you're standing on the corner talking to some other rolling 60s. So they could just indict you on that. It usually doesn't hold too much crime, too much weight. But the fact that they could bring you to the LA County Jail, which is a hellish place, you could just be a non-member. But you live in the neighborhood. Now, when they really want to talk about true organized crime, when you go to cities like Chicago and LA, that's organized. You can't just go walking around any neighborhood that you want. You have an understanding when you go to South Central, you can't just go wherever you want. You need to either check in or know somebody or have family or whatever the case. And even to this day, it's like that. I can't imagine how it was in the 80s and the 90s. You can't just go wherever you want to go and do what you want to do. You have to have permission. So it's organized. We know that the LAPD has many gangs that's been involved. The executioner squads, the bags benders. They have LAPD is literally like a gang. They're more crooked than the members themselves. The average LAPD member is more crooked than the worst Rolling 60 or the Black P Stones, than their worst member ever. Now, people figure, well, they're the police, so they're upholding the law. We have documented evidence of them killing people, setting folks up, dropping dudes off in other hoods, selling drugs. They're literally a gang. They operate like a gang. Now, let's go back to what he says here.
And this is just the first step. We will continue to bring gang cases as we dismantle them and reduce the threat they pose to our city. There are 3 Minneapolis-based violent gangs: the Highs, the Lows, and the Bloods. The Highs and the Lows are focused in North Minneapolis, divided by Broadway, and the Bloods operate primarily in South Minneapolis. Today, in our first...
Now, anytime they put a gang injunction or they bring a RICO on several different members, those are the people that's out there doing the most. That's what that means. If you go and look at documentations in LA, Broadway gangsters, Rolling 60s, Black P Stones, any neighborhood that's on a gang injunction, that means that they them niggas out there. 9 times out of 10, if you a rapper or whatever the case may be, or if you going out there and you want to be safe, those are the guys you gonna check in with. Because those are that's when they put a gang injunction out, then that means they've identified that these are the neighborhoods that ain't to be played with. You got to think about it, bro. And this is just some hip hop shit. We're hip hop fans. When did you ever hear a rapper ever diss Nip Hussle? When have you ever heard that?
No, nobody.
Never. Now, you've heard other members. You've heard rival sets in that city diss them because, that's just part of their, they have a long-standing issue with each other. But that's personal. You see what I'm saying? They know each other. They're from LA. So if they diss him, they're like, okay, well, I don't like his hood. So they have a legitimate gripe. But when have you ever heard an artist, you know how the rap beef and all that kind of stuff and dudes be dissing each other and stuff and rapping. You have never heard an artist in the hip hop industry diss Neighborhood Nip. Never. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. They know that if you're in the rap game, at some point you're going to have to come to LA. You're going to have to touch down to LA. That's a big market. LA, Chicago, Houston. You're going to have to go to LA. Right?
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to do no show.
Yeah, they're going to shut you down.
Yeah, you ain't doing no show unless you apologize and maybe pay up or something like that. I mean, you're not going to do no show.
No, you ain't even going to be able to promote nothing.
You ain't going to be able to promote nothing out there. You can't do that to those guys. You never heard him diss anybody. You never really heard him diss. Well, he dissed the rival hood and stuff, but he never dissed anybody. He never said anything.
He dissed academics. That's the only person I ever heard of.
Yeah, I mean, but academics was doing slick shit. So that was more like a checking. He didn't really. It wasn't like he just said, "Well, I just don't like the nigga," or whatever. Ack was doing some faulty shit, and Nip said, "Okay, we gotta check this nigga. This nigga's off code, so we just gonna let him know that he's off code." So he didn't really. It wasn't just like a random. You know how artists sometimes they'll just diss a nigga. Oh, I'm just gonna diss him just so I can get some views and stuff like that. That don't really work out there. People end up getting fucked up behind shit like that. That's why you don't really. Out west, you don't really hear dudes ain't doing a bunch of dissing because it ain't about a damn rap. You diss somebody out there. I mean, you having neighborhoods involved and shit like that. Like that shit gets serious. So if you notice, those guys don't really diss each other like that out there. There ain't a whole bunch of dissing.
Right.
So because they're used to doing that in real life. But going back to this injunction, they've identified because they've already looked and said, okay, this person's from here, this person's from there. They've looked at social media. They know all of this information.
First set of gang indictments, we are bringing RICO and related charges against 45 members of the Highs and the Bloods. This slide summarizes the charges and the defendants in today's cases, and all of these slides will be available to the media. We have charged 28 members and associates of the Highs and 17 members and associates of the Bloods. And the defendants are charged with a long list of federal crimes, from RICO to using a firearm in relation to murder. The indictments unsealed today allege that the defendants engaged in a brutal and unrelenting trail of violence.
Now, you see the words they're using. They're very strategic about how the media goes about this. Brutal and unrelenting. They're making them sound like monsters. Now, whether they are monsters or not, that's not for me to decide. We'll break down our analysis pretty soon here. Brutal and unrelentless. Did they talk that way about Carolyn Bryant, about the Mpls case that the DOJ closed? I'm just saying. No, they did not. They never looked at her, and this is the mother of white supremacy. This is what arguably kicked off the civil rights, movement. They never said she's brutal and unrelentless. They protected her to the very end. I just found out some reliable information that she was this old devil died in Louisiana. Now remember, Boots on the Ground found her in North Carolina. They kept moving her and moving her and moving her. So who did all the moving? We'll talk about that a little later. But this goes to show that the entire USA was complied in hiding her and making sure she was safe. Because had that been me or you, we would have never seen the light of day for a crime like that.
Of course not.
Over the course of years.
Had that been even the average whitey?
Oh, well. You talking about the average white guy?
Yeah, they probably wouldn't even got away with that.
Well, they did. You got to think Carolyn Bryant, she was 110% complicit with it. She was the reason why Emmett got killed. But
she came from a few dollars.
Not really. They were kind of some little broke. They didn't, Carolyn didn't really have no money like that. These were some dirt poor rednecks, kind of. They didn't really have too much. If you read the book, The Blood of Emmett Till, which I highly recommend, she admitted to being complicit in the murder. But those two white guys, like you said, if it would have been a white guy, those two white guys that killed him and shot him in the head and tortured him and all that, they killed him and then they sold her. And there's no statute limitation of murder, right? When they said they killed him, they sold their story. They went on the news and sold their story. They paid him like $5,000 to basically say, "Hey, what happened?" And they told him, they told these two white guys that came and kidnapped him, pretty much gave the whole story. Yeah, we tortured him. We peeled his skin back. We brutalized him. We tortured him until he died. Then we shot him in his head, and then they pretty much, the whole murder, they pretty much just said it. But in Mississippi, you got to think, that's the home of white supremacy. They're like, hey, listen, we've already got off. They were not going to get convicted in Mississippi. Wasn't going to happen. Because everybody in the jury just was like, nah, they didn't do it. Now, everybody in the state of Mississippi and in that town, they knew they did it. The sheriff did it. Everybody knew they did it. But you're not going to convict a white man. White supremacy must reign supreme. So we're not going to go against him, even though we know that you did this to a child. But race soldiers don't look at it like it's a child. They look at it like, okay, this is a fair deal. So they went to the news and pretty much got paid to say that they murdered this child. At one point, they tried to make up something and say, well, that kid you found in the river, Emmett's mom probably just brought him down and threw him in the river. They were saying stuff like that. I mean, it was dirty from one step to another. But anyway, we'll get back to it. So yeah, two white guys did get away with it. So yeah, if that would have been you, if you would have did that to a white girl and put her in a pond, you would have never made it out of Mississippi. You would have never made it out of Mississippi. Ain't no way. First of all, it wouldn't have been. You wouldn't have had no trial, because if they would have thought you did it or said you did it, you wouldn't even made it to the jail cell. The whole town would have grabbed you out the jail cell if you ever would have made it to it, and they would have strung you up and burned you alive and took pictures of you and sent the postcards around the country, because that's what they used to do.
Oh, yeah. They'd have gave you a town square whooping.
Yeah, you would have never made it to that jail cell. It wouldn't have been no trial. And that's yet another reason for reparations for foundationals. Black folks back then, we're getting off subject a little bit, but it's pertinent. Black folks back then, you didn't even necessarily have to be guilty. A lot of people don't know that even in Tulsa, when black folks were fighting back in Tulsa, they didn't start bringing the planes until they was catching ass whoopings. There was a lot of military soldiers and black folks that went to World War I, or went to wars and stuff, were in the military, that when the race soldiers made up the lie that a black man touched a white woman or whatever, they were really upset because Tulsa was one of the richest cities in America. Not the richest black cities. A lot of people don't know that. They were balling out of control in Tulsa. And the race soldiers was pissed. They was like, oh, hell no. These Negroes, they're literally less than 70 years out of slavery, and they got these big-ass houses, and, they were mad as hell. They had a bank. They had everything. So the race soldiers was pissed. So they were like, all right, let's just make up a story. Oh, this nigga raped a white woman. And so, that's when all the white people start coming to town. And some of the military soldiers, the black soldiers, was giving their ass the business. So they said, all right, let's drop some bombs. That was the first domestic bombing in the United States of America, was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But the thing is where did they get the planes? The planes were already lined up, so that's how you know they planned it. Now, this is some information I'm giving you that you probably never heard of. They planned the Tulsa massacre. A lot of black folks don't know this. They think that, it just happened because some white girl lied. No, they planned it because the planes were already lined up outside of town. So when the race soldiers was getting their ass whipped by all these military, you're military, but you ain't got no planes. So these white people had these planes, and that's when they start dropping the bombs, burning up all the buildings. They were raping children, raping women, burning people, lynching them. You know, it was literally a massacre. They call it a race riot. It wasn't a riot. It was a massacre. Anyway.
Such as revenge killings, assaults, and
now,
shooting.
Now that right there, revenge killings, that has a first degree premeditation. When you say revenge killing, they're going to say, hey, they're relentless, they're merciless, they're monstrous. This is a revenge killing. You had beef with somebody.
That included the murder of innocent bystanders.
Uh-oh. Wait a minute. Now, you got on me the other day. You said, DP, you're not denouncing the gang activity. You know, on the Bagland podcast, we have a code of conduct here. If there's some serial hood hitters, wait a minute. I can't give passes if there's some innocent bystanders.
Violence such as revenge killings, assaults, and shootings that included the murder of innocent bystanders. Traditionally, our approach to gun violence has been to charge violent offenders crime by crime.
Now, here's the key. Here's the key right here of the RICO.
Shooting by shooting, case by case. And we will continue to do so in order to take violent offenders off the street in this manner. However, to reduce violent crime in Minneapolis dramatically, we are also addressing the unique harm violent gangs bring to our communities, and we are dismantling them. These first indictments illustrate the new shift in our approach. We are addressing gangs.
So what they're saying is, young black folks understand this. You Negroes is going to get hit with the top of the book, the max. These are this is remember what I said before. This is the Dred Scott North. This is Rico Soda. This is no longer, well, you just get a little pistol charge here and then you get out. No. That's over with. This is the new normal. Rico is the new normal because, see, when you hear about, like, look at the carjackings and the stuff like that, people were complaining, saying, well, yeah, man, you know, this kid done did this and he did it again and he did it again. And these repeat offenders, they're like, no, ain't gonna be no repeats. We gonna say that you're organized crime. You organized this. You sat down with your homie and said, hey, look, man, we about to go do this. We gonna take this money and we gonna buy these pipes and they gonna say, okay, nigga, you're organized. Basically, y'all, all you little young Negroes out here, y'all some masterminds. y'all some pinky in the brains. You some smart niggas. You're organized. You're like the mob. So we gonna hit you with the Rico Suave. And you're like, well, wait a minute. Hold on, I'm not that bright. All I did is just rob this one nigga and I bought a pipe and sold a little fentanyl and, you know, went and bought this stolen car. I ain't organized. This ain't no organized crime. They were like, no, nigga. No, you're smart. You're a mastermind. You were premeditated. You sat around and you planned this out. You had a schematic. You architected this. That's how they're looking at this. Oh, Rico. But we gonna tie all y'all in.
Violence for what it is, organized criminal activity. And to be clear, there will be more cases after this. To prosecute the members of the gang as part of a criminal organization, we are using the Racketeering, Influenced, and Corrupt Organization Act, known as RICO. Let me explain briefly how RICO works. First, we established that the gang, here, the Highs and the Bloods, are a criminal or enterprise, and that members participate in that enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity. Racketeering activity can be anything from straight state crimes, such as assaults, robberies, and murders.
So now, if I rob you, hey, nigga, give me that money. You come out the club, you're balling, I snatch your chain, and then I say, rolling 30s. Rico. That's really what that is when you think about it. That's a Rico. Now, you might have just been one dude, but, okay, you brought up the thing YSL. You said, man, Thug probably don't even know half these dudes. They be at the club. They smack a nigga. YSL, nigga, YSL. Rico. he probably really don't know who half these dudes is. He might have got a few of them in the club. It might have been an associate of an associate of an associate. And he really be like, damn, who this dude's telling. Well, who is that? He's never been in my house. He don't even really know me like that, but he's screaming YSL. You said something earlier today that, well, they indict you, you'll get a perjury charge or whatnot. You lie to the police, that's a crime. But you said that if you're in the interrogation room, the police can just lie to you and they don't get charged with a crime.
No. And not only that, you know, like how waterboarding, they can get you to damn near admit to anything.
Right.
You know, it's a form of verbal waterboarding, because if I'm telling you, well, you know, Phil, you know, he's in there snitching on you, that gives you more inkling to just make up a lie about me.
Verbal waterboarding. That's a hell of a statement. I've never heard that term before. Verbal waterboarding.
I made it up.
That's a hell of a term.
That's why interrogations shouldn't be outlawed, obviously, but anytime a police says something that isn't true, the whole thing should be over.
I agree.
Just stick to the facts, you know, because that one thing is what gets them a lot of their information, is when they say, well, you know, they telling on you, you know.
That's like
you gonna sit here and go to jail for your buddies? Like, I watched this one yesterday. They were interrogating these little 16-year-old kids. The interrogator, she said, the little white girl, she said, look, you little bitch, I don't have time for this. Somebody was murdered and you need to talk, because your friends are back there squealing all on you. You know, which wasn't true, but that's how they get a lot of their info. So why is it that they can break laws and we can't? That's something that people should think about. And how far would they go with their investigations and their RICOs if they weren't able to lie?
Right. Like, well, what if, because see, if you're going to say, okay, we're upholding the Constitution, this is the law. We know a law ain't a law unless it's enforced. If everybody said, hey, listen, you giving me this, you telling me this, because we've seen First 48, we've seen all that. And we all know that when you get into it, your lawyer will tell you this, don't say a word. But what they'll do is, a lot of times, and Chicago PD has done this a lot of times, they'll torture people, or they'll do, you know, they'll what they call the coercing. They'll coerce information. All right, well, you know, hit this nigga with this sock, this soap sock, or, you know, they'll burn him, or they'll do something where you're like, all right, fuck it, I'll just say it. So there's a lot of signed confessions. Chicago PD is known to have done this, where they got black folks down at the station, and they'll say, look, confess to this crime. And you know, the average nigga will be like, hell no, I ain't confessing. See, they may beat you up, rough you up a little bit, or torture you, and then you get signed it out of desperation. That's a crime. You know what I'm saying? Laquan McDonald, a race soldier, got like a 20-piece. Remember we talked about that Obama's boy, Rahm Emanuel.
Yeah.
His slimy ass hid the evidence. Even when the family was trying to use the Freedom of Information Act, there was a point where Laquan McDonald got killed, and it was two Puerto Ricans that seen the murder. Nobody else really seen it. And they must have seen the police kill him. They went up there. It was a Puerto Rican woman and a Puerto Rican dude, I think. And they was like, hey, y'all, you seen that? They start harassing their ass. They start showing up at their house, intimidating them, shit like that. Like, hey, you didn't see what you just saw, did you? And the people was like, yeah, we seen you just kill that black man. No, you didn't. That's not what you saw. You didn't see us kill no black man. And they're like, no, I seen you. They're like, I seen you shoot that nigga.
People.
Yeah, that. He covered up that whole entire case. He covered up that whole.
His family buys their way through everything, you know.
Right. But see what they did to a lot of black folks, and I'm not really sure. At that time, they were kind of like how me or you were around with Obama and stuff. Like, we were like, oh, okay, you know, black president, things going. Black folks in Chicago probably at that time really didn't understand what was really going on. what it is the Republican conservative boogeyman. People was hitting them. Oh, well, if they get in, this gonna happen and the sky's gonna fall and all that. Rather than niggas saying, "Fuck y'all, we want some reparations and tangibles." You know, but at that time, none of us were really politically intelligent. We just kind of said, okay, well, you know, so you know, Rahm and Obama, they just kind of sat there and just watching niggas get slaughtered over the whole time that they were in the administration. So they were actually complicit in a lot of type of shit that was going on. You had race soldiers, you know, killing black people. And come to find out, when the cop that got charged with the crime, I think he did a 20-piece. And I seen the documentary. I think it was on HBO. One of the cops, I guess the cops started talking. And one of the police said, "Hey, if we would have caught his ass coming out the precinct, we might have knocked his ass off." This is a cop that actually said that about another cop, because the cop that got charged and convicted with the Laquan McDonald murder, I guess, you know, he probably figured that he was gonna do some time, you know. And this ain't like in Minnesota. I mean, it's bad in any prison, but damn it, this is Cook County. The gangs run shit. The GDs and the BDs and the vice lords run the prisons down there. So he was like, well, damn, I just shot this nigga. I'm going to be, you know, you white in an all-black prison and you a cop that gets shot a nigga. Like, he probably was scared. He probably said, you know what, man, I know more. So he started talking. He started talking. And that's why how Rahm had to start releasing the Freedom of Information Act and all the stuff that the media and investigators were trying to find out about what happened to Laquan. Come to find out, he killed this nigga in cold blood. So if you watch the documentary, the Laquan McDonald documentary, that's a good one.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, you gotta check out. It's a lot of little ones like that. Strange Fruit, that was a real good one. Was that on somewhere? I think it was on Amazon. You gotta watch that one. That was about the brother in Valdosta. They got rolled up in the it remind you of Mpls and shit all the way. He got rolled up in that little that gym mat, but they said that he. You remember the gym mats back in school, the big long gym mats. Now let's say, think about it. Let's say you in the gym. I know we going way off subject, but it's pertinent. It's pertinent. You in the gym and you lost your shoe. They try to say that the mat was standing up and his shoe was in the mat, but the mat was standing up vertically, and that he crawled on the top of the mat to go down and get his shoe. You know what I'm saying? Does that make any logical sense to you?
None. Absolutely none.
The mat is standing up. So rather than just pushing the mat over and grabbing your shoe, first of all, how'd your shoe get inside the mat? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So if you look at what happened to that case of what's the brother's name? I hate that I forgot. Valdosta, Georgia. It's called Strange Fruit. The documentary is called Strange Fruit. It was hold on. Let me pull it up real quick. Oh, we gotta get his name. I hate it when oh my God. Speaking of Valdosta, Georgia, 1918. Did you hear about that? That sister?
No.
Basically, it was Valdosta, Georgia. That's another horrible thing that happened to a foundational family. There was a black man that they said he did something, and I guess he must have tried to check some white folks or whatever the case may be, and so they lynched him. The man's wife called the race soldiers out. This was in 1918, I believe. She called the race soldiers out. She was pregnant, so they grabbed her, hung her over a bridge, took a knife. She was pregnant, cut her stomach open and killed the baby and let her sit there. Valdosta, Georgia.
Damn.
So, yet another reason for reparations. But no, that was hold on. What was it called? Strange Fruit. It was called Valdosta, Georgia. Damn, what was his name? We got to get his name before we go on. Valdosta, Georgia. Jim Matt. Let me look at the Jim Matt. Oh, Kendrick Johnson. Kendrick Johnson. That brother in Kendrick Johnson. When you look at the Kendrick Johnson case, it's very similar to the Emmett Till case. Very similar. Anyway, getting back to now the indictment, it says, now we're looking at the Star Tribune. Lugar billed the indictments as the first wave of the ongoing operation. He said involving the other major gang in Minneapolis, the Lowe's on the north side. So they show a picture here, approximate Minneapolis gang territories. They're showing a picture, courtesy of OpenStreetMap. The Bloods is showing in Lake Street. You see 35 wrapping around. Then way on the other side of the city, you have the Highs dividing across the West Broadway and then the Lowe's. The indictment charging the Highs, which has largely done business on the north side of Minneapolis since 2008, accuses 20 members of the RICO linked to 5 murders between April and September 2021, 10 attempted murders, robbery, and drug trafficking. 5 others are charged with separate gun and drug crimes. What they're going to do, and you know how this works, the dudes with the pistol charges and maybe one of them murders, they're going to say, hey, well, what you know? And they're going to wrap some other people up. So dudes that might have knocked some folks down, some dudes that got bodies that ain't never got caught, they're going to start naming some of them too.
Yeah.
Now look.
Oh, yeah, they're going to all start naming them.
It says the charges outline how prospective recruits are ordered to prove their loyalty by putting in work, which prosecutors say involves carrying out violent crimes for the gang or helping procure drugs or weapons. Those who fail to follow through will be expelled or assaulted. So basically, if you're in the set and you ain't putting in no work, you might get the beats.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you have to prove yourself as a loyal and outstanding member. You see?
Just quote them, just like for cops.
Yeah, pretty much.
Same thing.
Pretty much. And I'm glad you draw that parallel because there was a white woman that was on the Minneapolis PD. I think it was on a ProPublica article that we talked about a while back. And it was talking about how this white woman, she had just joined the force and she was on Lake Street, and the other cop, the guy that was training her in, he basically told her, he said, hey, look, you know, you see that nigga walking across the street? Just go shove his ass. You know, she's kind of on some, like, man, what did he do? And the white guy's like, it don't matter. He's black. Just go fuck him up. And old girl was like, no, I'm not about to do that. Like, that's illegal. Like, I'm upholding the law. She's like, he was trying to tell her, like, this is what we do. So he just went over there and grabbed the nigga and just roughed him up. He was just walking across the street. You know what I'm saying? So she was seeing stuff like this. That's why I say I'm going to have to look into this RICO a little bit more. I'm not co-signing the RICO off top. Now, if you want to indict a nigga for doing some shit, but this wholesale, we just going to wrap everybody up. Now, if it's a serial hood hitter situation and there's innocent people, I want to make my position very clear on the Bagland tonight. I don't care what gang members do to each other. Now, if it's a little girl that gets shot or an old lady or somebody, some brother that's just getting up going to work and, yeah, he gets hit by a bullet, hey, you know what I'm saying? I don't really, yeah, you do whatever you want with these niggas. But if it's just Pookie and he just shoots Ray in a card game and the nigga owes him some money and he fucked his baby mama and the nigga just shoots the other nigga and don't nobody else get hurt, I don't really care what they do. I'm not really gonna cry over, if it's criminal on criminal, cool. Now, if it's criminal upon old lady or, this brother right here, he's getting ready to pick his daughter up and he's coming from Cub Foods and, and you just jack him for his car. Oh, no. That's serial hood. See, the thing, what's happened today is you got niggas that, well, I'm a criminal. Oh, I'm a street nigga. But if you're involving yourself with non-street niggas. No. That's a civilian. You don't touch civilians. You're supposed to know that that's part of the game. You don't touch no civilian. You're not a civilian. You don't touch civilians. You're supposed to deal with other criminals. So, like I said, if Pookie or Ray Ray shoots Pookie or Ray Ray, but see, here's the thing. Where do you draw the line? Pookie and Ray Ray has kids too. Some niggas be like, oh man, that's Pookie's little 2-year-old daughter in the car. She the ops. Niggas think like that. Oh man, we gonna splash his car up. See? But see, the thing is, if Pookie, if you're in the gang, your daughters and your children ain't supposed to be riding with you anyway.
Right, yeah, you should know.
The mom,
a lot of them, baby, try to have their kids with them as a shield.
Oh man, that's even. Oh man, now we're done. We're going.
Like ain't nobody gonna shoot me when I got my kids.
Yeah, that
you got to think. You got all them ops. You know, you would think at least a motherfucker would have some sense not to be riding with his kids.
I wouldn't ride with my kids if I was into some shit like that. And really, I'm gonna be honest. This may sound selfish, because you know, as men, we're supposed to continue our genetic legacy. That's the purpose of us being on this planet. We're supposed to sire children within our genetic likeness and image to pass the legacy on. But if I was involved in this kind of lifestyle, bro, like I don't think that if I'm involved in that I should really be worried about having kids at that point. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm involved in some shit like that, it's probably not best. Because, see, you might be an upstanding citizen. You might leave this shit alone. But niggas don't forget. You might have did something to somebody many years ago where the ops might be young ops now. Now you 30, 35, 40. I want to get into the ages in a minute when we look at this indictment, because that's important. I seen a nigga that was on there that was in his 40s. And I said, oh, man, fuck. Like, okay, that's a prime reason why you don't want to be an older nigga and not on nothing. It just looks bad. You see what I'm saying? It's just not a good look. It's just really not. Like, now, guys in their early 20s, you be like, okay, we're young and dumb. You could say that. Nigga, you're 40. Well, what are you dealing with? You're 40 years old. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, so you could tell 9 times out of 10, if you sat that nigga down, he would probably sound like a guy in his 20s.
Right.
And I don't even know him. I'm just going off of logic. I'm like, okay, I'm looking at the indictment. I'm seeing the age of these guys. Some of them are in their 30s, but a lot of these guys are in their 20s. And I got to keep in mind that some of them is repeat offenders. Some people go to jail. They don't grow up. They're living on borrowed and old time. If you're in your early 20s, bro, and you do some time for 5 to 6 years or whatever, when you get out, you still catching up. So you haven't really had no time to mature. You're surrounded by other criminals. So I don't really know how much you're going to better yourself unless you really do it. If you get on like some Malcolm X shit and literally read and better yourself mentally, like, but you're not in a place that's really designed for you to do so. You see what I'm saying? You're not really, this isn't an environment for you to foster and empower yourself. You literally would have to go outside of your mindset and force yourself to mature yourself. You're not going to be, you're amongst folks that's probably thinking of the same shit. Recidivism. Hey, yeah, man, let's get out here and get this lick. You got niggas in there that think like that, bro. You know, not everybody gets out and says, man, I'm about to go straight. Not everybody thinks like that. Some niggas be like, man, I can't wait to see the ops. Fresh out. I can't wait to see the ops. I can't wait to hit this lick. I can't wait to do this. I can't wait to, you know, not everybody thinks like, man, I'm about to see if I get me an IT certification. Man, I'm about to see if I get into contracting. You know, I want me an enterprise like Solomon. I want to hire me some contractors. I want to get some 1099 shit going. I want to get me a work truck. Not everybody thinks like that. So you're not really in an environment that's going to foster a lot of forward empowerment and thinking. Now, this right here, they said decades. They said the Minneapolis Bloods chapter has meanwhile been more entrenched in the city. Remember I told you before, they've been around since the 80s. Operating on the south side of town for at least several decades. A newly unsealed separate indictment charged 5 members and associates, including 2 connected to the RICO, with 2 bodies and 10 attempted murders, robbery, and drug trafficking. The other 3 faced drug and gun charges using a firearm in 2 separate murders. It says the chargers describe a similar hierarchy within the Bloods, where new recruits fight, shoot, or make money to rise up. Meanwhile, respected OGs or original gangsters give orders to the enforcers and younger members. The highest level of the gang is double OG. So, yeah. So they saying that's how they really gonna hit. What they're gonna focus. This is my prediction. And my analysis. They're gonna focus on the Bloods heavily by saying, well, y'all been around. You're mature. You've been around a long time. So you guys are a lot more organized than these other gangs. See, when they say highs and lows, that's a demographic. I could bring up a map and show you, okay, this is the highs and the lows. Okay, this is south of Broadway. This is north of Broadway. With the Bloods, they're saying, hey, you guys have been around for 30 plus years. You're an organized crime. This is relentless. This is treacherous. This is, that's the way they're going to say it. Then right here, they got one dude. He's charged with a RICO, drug conspiracy. Now, that drug conspiracy is almost worse than the damn possession itself. Once they start putting conspiracy, that's that premeditation. That conspiracy, that word right there. I want people to focus on that word. Conspiracy is the epitome of the Rico Suave. I had to put a little sound effect. That's the epitome of the Rico Suave. They say he was possession of a firearm and a machine gun in furtherance of drug trafficking and a possession of intent to distribute fentanyl. That right there is going to be the epitome of their RICO. Now,
oh man, that's going to be the main ticket.
Now, he says he is a lawyer. Now, let me see. He might have a little paper. So he is a lawyer, so you ain't going to be able to do much with a RICO, but let's see who the lawyer is. Oh, okay. Now, he got a lawyer for real. Okay.
Who was his lawyer?
Frederick Goetz.
Black guy?
No, he got a white dude. Whoever, this is his lawyer. So this brother, the one that they named with the major charges, he got a lawyer. So this dude is known to fight narcotics crimes, murder, copyright infringement, bribery, constitutional rights by government officials, police officers, and correction staff. So yeah, he got the real deal Holyfield. All these other niggas ain't gonna have no. This brother got a lawyer. He got a real lawyer. So he's probably the dude that got the paper. Then they mention a bunch of other guys from the highs. And most of that's firearms and shit like that, but then furtherance of a murder. So any of these guys that's tied in with a murder, they gonna hit them with the life sentence. They gonna hit them, say, hey, here's a life sentence. Then they went back to the Bloods again. 2 counts of gun charges linked to a murder. Holy shit.
Man, that's some real shit.
Whoa, wait a minute. Hold on. This is crazy. Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. Something just popped out. This is very interesting.
What is it?
This name looks familiar.
The name?
There's a name that looks familiar. I'm not sure, but this name looks familiar.
What's the name?
Okay. They got a guy on here. They said in the Bloods cases, they said James Solomon charged with a RICO, 2 counts linked charge in a murder.
Solomon?
Yeah, some dude named James Solomon, Deshaun James Solomon. Then they said Michael Allen Burrell, a.k.a. Skits 42. That sounds like the dude that had got charged back in the day, a long time ago, for a crime that he didn't commit. There was a little girl that got shot.
Myron Burrell.
Oh, that's not him. Okay. I'm still okay. Now let's clear that up. Let's clear it up. It says Michael Allen Burrell, aka Skits, 42.
Well, that's a guy named Myron Burrell.
Okay. I was gonna say. Okay. I was gonna say because I was like, okay, he was in jail. Y'all can't charge him with no shit like that. Do you remember that case? There was a case. Yeah. There was a case where he said that he shot a little girl and he didn't do it, and somebody else recanted the statement and they still wouldn't let him out. I think it was Klobuchar that was on some bullshit with that case. Still wouldn't let him out. They still wouldn't let him out. So yeah, and that's why I'm saying I'm not saying I'm being lenient with the RICO, but I know how these folks play. I know how these people play, bro. So that's why I'm kind of like, all right, is this some serial hood hitter shit going on with some of these dudes? Because I can't give that a pass. If you harming innocent people, I can't give that a pass. Now, if you shooting other gang members and other gang, okay, fine, have at it. But if you shooting little girls and grandma walking down the street and you robbing her for a car, no. Can't get that a pass. That's serial hood hitter codification there. I can't get with that. Yeah, I can't get with that. If they RICO you for hitting grandma or hitting a little girl, no. I'm wondering, you know what? I'm wondering, you remember them unsolved murder cases with them little boys and them little black boys and girls in North Minneapolis? I wonder if they're going to try to tie some of this into the RICO.
Yeah.
I'm wondering. I'm
sure
really wondering. Because they couldn't find who did it. How do we know? And see, with the RICO, it casts a wide net. They may say, hey, nigga, you going to get 20 years for this pipe chase. You had a switch on your shit. What you know about this little girl. It's going to open up all kinds of cans of worms. Here we go. I happen to say wide net. When the U.S. attorneys, now this is when the U.S. attorneys, this is them quoting from the case, when the U.S. attorney's office casts such a wide net with a RICO indictment, it is even more important that we remember that an indictment is not proof of anything. It is merely an allegation that Catherine Rowe, the federal defender from Minnesota, who is representing multiple defendants in this case. Now, she's just saying word salad. When they indict you with a RICO, when you're in a RICO, man, it doesn't matter whether you did it or not. Because you're going to have a few rats that's just going to say you did it.
Right.
Now, if I had a good murder lawyer like this one dude, this Goats dude, I would, the way I would rip the RICO up, I'm going to tell you, this is how some of them Bloods is going to beat the RICO, which is probably not going to happen. Everybody's not going to say a word, okay? That's the first thing they're going to say. Everybody in that gang is not going to say a word. And their lawyer is going to say, hey, you're accusing my client of X. You got to prove it. But see, the RICO works on rats. So they know for a fact that it's going to be somebody in the gang that's going to say, well, yeah, man, me and that nigga shot that nigga, and then we went to Five Guys afterwards, man. Don't give me no time. You know, it's going to be something like that. You know that they're going to have 2 or 3 minimal 2 to 3 rats in the gang that's going to say, yeah, man, I was with that nigga when he shot so-and-so. They know that. So, but if everybody doesn't say anything, and their lawyer's like, okay, well, you know, do you have any DNA? Do you have, because it's all one RICO, but let's be clear on the Bagland tonight. The highs and the lows and the Bloods don't necessarily know each other. We're talking about completely different, neighborhoods. The Bloods is over
the
south.
The police know that.
And they know that.
The police know that they're not going to talk right away. That's why, like what I was telling you earlier, they're going to sit him, cool him off for about a year.
Oh,
there's no bail, no nothing. For about a year, you're just going to sit until you get tired of that. Then eventually you're going to talk. And they don't need, the thing is, out of the 250 indictments, they only need about 4 or 5 of them to talk. That's it. They don't need no. So they don't need 250 of them.
So 5 people can indict about 200 people.
shit, yeah. Well, what they can do, see, here's the thing. When they load up on these Ricos like that, it's like going to Old Country Buffet and loading up on a plate more than you know you're going to eat. What they're doing is you load up on this Rico and you might not, these 250 people, probably 200 of them ain't really got a whole lot to do with it, but they know what's going on. Their information is valuable. So the fact that we can stick them, they might have took a picture on Facebook with a rag or some kind of text messaging or something that can probably implement them even in a small manner. Let's lock them up, and they'll lead us to where we need to go. They know the hardened criminals, the leaders, the top niggas in the game. They ain't gonna say a whole lot.
Right.
It's the motherfuckers that got something to lose. It's the Gunners of the world or the 6ix9ines of the world, the fake thugs. Them kids that ain't built for this. They're gonna lock them up for a whole year. And they might not even talk to them in that year. They might not even question them. That's it. We'll come see you when it's time. And then they'll come to them maybe about Christmas time next year and be like, oh, man, you're going to be sitting in jail for these fools? You ain't going to be with your family? You know, I want you to tell us what you know. By that point, you're going to be singing like a canary. Now, you've been sitting in that motherfucker a whole year. Ain't no one talk to you. They talking about charging you with all this and that. And, you know, your lawyer's are going to tell you, well, I can't do nothing until they make their next move.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of confusion. So that's where they get you to talk. You know what I mean? That's where they get it all, not just a little bit, not just some. We want all of it. And they'll get it.
Now look at this. It says here, lifetime prison sentences are possible. Let me go back up. You just said something about the ages. Those charged in the first wave range in age from 20 to 47. Lifetime prison sentences are possible for anyone convicted of racketeering, here's the magic word, conspiracy connected to murder, using a firearm to commit murder, and conspiracy to distribute controlled substances. So basically, conspiracy. You call somebody and say...
very vague.
That's very vague. So you call somebody and say, hey, bro, we about to go over here and bring this bag of weed over to so-and-so's house. Conspiracy. That's really
not just that. I could call you and I could say, hey, man, give me so-and-so's phone number.
Right.
You know, and you give me the number, yes, conspiracy right there.
Intent to do business.
Yep. You could have even bought a bag from one of them kids. Bought a bag of weed, anything. They'll lock your ass up over that shit, you know what I mean, and really play with you a little bit and get you to talk.
It said the prosecutors...
They're not expecting the heads and the leaders of these gangs to do the talking. They know better than that. Because you got to think, okay, in the two hottest RICO cases lately, you got the Treyway. Did Shotty talk? Hell no.
No, he didn't.
Okay, in the YSL, is Young Thug talking? So far, he doesn't even probably have the option to talk.
No, he's not. Yeah, he's not talking.
Yeah, okay, but guess what? 6ix9ine squealed like a pig, and so they're gonna.
Right.
It's a guarantee. When you drop RICO, there's another thing you got to know once you hear the term RICO charge. Motherfuckers are gonna talk, and they're gonna. And once they hit the RICO, there's no bond, there's no nothing. Guess what? You're going to sit.
Now listen to this. They said prosecutors said the Highs primarily do business in West Broadway and North Minneapolis with the Lowe's territory south. The Bloods, meanwhile, occupy territory in South Minneapolis. The Blood Gang was founded in L.A. and has chapters across the country. The Minneapolis chapter was first founded by an L.A. Bloods member, but according to the indictment, the Bloods in Minnesota are not structurally connected to those in L.A. Their structure includes two main sets, Rolling 30s and Outlaws, and they work together. Though rare in Minnesota and not previously used to charge Minneapolis street gangs, RICO cases have been deployed in cities such as Houston, Chicago, and Philly in recent years. Now, they said they did not use it to charge Minneapolis street gangs before. That's true. But one thing is, let's slide down Let's slide down a car or two down the liberal limousine in memory lane. Hennepin County Attorney's Office, 12 charged with racketeering in downtown Minneapolis phone theft ring. Do you remember all them lames that was stealing phones downtown? Let me read you this indictment. This was back in 2020. Y'all probably forgot about this. 12 people charged for running a highly organized criminal enterprise that has operated a cell phone theft ring in downtown Minneapolis for over a year, victimized more than 40 people. So they catch somebody that's drunk. Now listen to the people. Now when I seen this at the very bottom, my spidey sense started growing up. Now most of the people, you had one dude that was 25, another one 21, 18, 41. Okay, so when you get a nigga that's 41, that tells you everything you need to know. Then everybody in this whole clique is from the ages of 18 to 26. Except for the 41-year-old. Now you get to the very bottom, you see Zong Shong Su, Brandon Su of Minneapolis. He's an Asian.
They're on the Rico?
He's on the Rico. They had a Rico phone case a couple years ago. Now listen to this. Now notice they didn't mention how old he was. But I'm going to read you the indictment. According to the complaint, from June 2021 to May 2022, 12 individuals operated as an enterprise to systematically steal cell phones, fraudulently transfer funds from the victims' phones to individuals associated with the theft ring, and then sell the phones locally and internationally. So they was finding folks coming out of bars that was drunk, take their phone, beat them up. At other times, it says defendants would approach victims in a friendly manner and ask them for their phone so the defendant could add themselves to a social media platform. I don't know who's that damn goofy to give them their phone, but drunk white people, they be doing shit. The defendant would make sure the victim unlocked their phone before handing the phone to another defendant in the illegal operation, who would transfer money from the victim's accounts to the defendant's accounts using mobile payments such as Venmo, Zelle, and Coinbase. Through months of dedicated work by law enforcement, it was determined that the defendants would funnel phones to Mr. Su, nicknamed the iPhone Man. Now, he was selling the phones stolen through the scheme to institutions locally and in China. Nearly 50 shipments of phones sent to Hong Kong. Another 30 shipments were sent to the address of a Minneapolis hot pot restaurant that employs Mr. Su. And as part of the coordinated scheme, the thefts and robberies resulted in losses estimated to be 300 bands. So $159,000 of cash, $85,000 in cryptocurrency. The phones was about 25 bands, and then attempted cash is 32 bands. So listen to this. The complaint outlines 33 distinct incidents that were organized by the enterprise. The defendants are linked to each other in many ways. Multiple pairs of the defendants share an address. So number one, let's break that down, Solomon. These were a bunch of lames that didn't have their own apartments, so they shared addresses.
Oh, yeah.
Number two of the defendants are in a romantic relationship. All right? So let's go look at the names. They said 2 of the defendants were in a romantic relationship. So you got Aaron, that's a dude. Charlotte, that's a girl. 2 Charlies. 1 Lawrence. Hiron, I don't know if that's a girl or not, but Alfonsi, Sherrod, Marion, Antonio, David Mullins. So 2 dusty lames were together. They couldn't think of getting the LLC, but they figured, well, hey, let's go ahead and get wrapped up in this Rico. Multiple pairs of defendants are related to one another, including 2 that are cousins and the 2 that are a father and a son. Oh man.
Oh, wow. The father should get charged double.
Oh, he just get charged for being a lame. There should be like a lame Rico. Oh, man. Oh, geez. So,
yeah, the father should get charged double.
Oh, my gosh. Yo.
Double Rico.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
Man, we
Jeez.
get Minnesota gets and I bet you how many of them are born foundational Minnesotans?
No, not many. Most of them, I hate to say this, y'all, but we got to keep it real. Most of these folks is from the Midwest, Indiana, Chicago, primarily Cook County, probably. A lot of them from Chicago, maybe a couple brothers from Mississippi, Ohio, but primarily, man, they from the surrounding states. It ain't a lot of folks from New York. It ain't a lot of people from California. It's folks from the Midwest. See, people come to Minnesota, like you said this before. I need you to break down this concept of this. It wasn't a reparations plan, but it was $200 a month. You broke down this very interesting concept earlier about how Minnesota works with all this money floating around, because we know that there's more.
That's a whole lot more than $200. A whole lot more than $200 a month.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
$200 a month. It's a lot more than that, brother. It's So here's the thing. I'll break it down in very simplistic terms. Minnesota, the state of Minnesota, gets federal grants to accept. You know, there's an old expression: "Give me your weak, give me your poor, give me your disenfranchised." I think that's John F. Kennedy, maybe. There's a quote from him. That's right. What Minnesota does. That's what Minnesota does. So, for instance, Minnesota takes, when foreigners are in a communist country and they escape to something called a refugee camp. Minnesota is the state that goes, bring them here, because they get federal grants for that. Minnesota is a state that accepts people from other states with mental health issues and gives them benefits and whatnot, because they get federal grants to do that.
Right.
And the reason why Minnesota does that is because, okay, you take the average person that lives in the city of Minneapolis, you take out people with mental health and take out foreigners. It's a dead zone. It's a ghost zone. You know what I mean? There's more people leaving Minnesota every year than coming. It's not a destination state. It's the coldest state in America. In America. It's not a destination state. It's not somewhere, oh, we won the lottery. We got a great job. Let's go pick up and move to Minnesota.
Right.
No one does that.
Right. No one does that. You're right.
So Minnesota, to keep their population up, has to do that. And in turn, they took that money, that surplus of money that they're getting in federal grants, and they built stadiums and, they took care of a lot of the infrastructure. But why the people move here is, if you are a foundational or a foreigner and you go to your doctor and you say, I can't work because I got this issue, this and that, they're going to cut you a check.
Oh, man.
The first check is going to be, until they get everything, situated, what you got and this and that, they're going to give you something called general assistance, GA. That's $206 a month. You're going to get that. Hold on. You're going to get that plus $300 in food stamps, and then $300 in food stamps, and then $300 in cash with the food stamp card. That's just for the first couple months until they diagnose you, get you housing and everything. Then you're going to get bumped up to, depending on if you ever worked or not in your life, you'll get $700 to $800 a month, plus $600 in food stamps. Plus they'll get you housing, which is 1/3 of your income.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'll get all that if you move to Minnesota. Other states, the only way you're going to get that is if you legitimately have a legitimate, real medical issue that doesn't allow you to work, like you're in a wheelchair, you got real bad diabetes, you got gout, something like that. But Minnesota, you can get it on account of just anxiety.
So I can just be a lazy ass nigga and just say, "Hey man,
yeah.
give me get $200 a month."
No, you talking about $800 a month plus $600 in food stamps. The $200 a month is just for the beginning. That's just until they get you situated. Put some money in your pocket until they figure out. It takes a while for them to diagnose you.
Oh man!
So that's why you see these dusty brothers from Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago. The only reason they moved to Minnesota was that. And here's another thing that people don't talk about. Say if you have a substance abuse issue and shit, they'll deny you. They won't look after you. But say 10 years ago you applied for disability and then you were denied. 10 years ago.
Right.
Now say you applied again last week and then you got approved. They will pay you for 10 years.
Damn. So you might get a $20,000 check.
You'll get a check for $800 a month for 12 years or for 10 years. 120 months, 800. You do the math. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of money.
Yeah,
I mean, so Minnesota has the money to do that. And the reason they do that is who's going to go in there? They need taxpayers. And taxpayers is not just someone who works. Taxpayers is someone who goes to a store.
Right.
And buys things, you know. Not only that, if I get a check for $10,000 a month and I give you 2 of them, you know, I'm still coming up. That's how the state's looking at it. The state probably gets that $800 they're giving him in disability and then $600 in stamps, so that's about $1,400 a month. They're probably getting about $8,000 a person.
So they're not.
And they're giving up about $1,500. No, they're coming to the state is coming up. Is what I'm trying to tell people. But what needs to happen is you need the profit sharing, revenue sharing. Well, they look at it like, well, we built you a mall. All your sports teams have their own stadiums. What more do you want? There should be profit sharing. But see, this is stuff the state doesn't talk about. So you see the average person, they just think, man, they bringing all these foreigners over here. Man, fuck this. And you have to understand your state is benefiting from that greatly. They should, the people should be putting the pressure on the state to do that. Because what happens is you dealing with dusty niggas, lames, that came over here for that reason. When you see somebody that's in their early 20s and mid 30s and they talk about trying to get on disability, that's a scary loser ass motherfucker, you know?
Right. Yeah.
I'm trying to get my little 703, man. Shit. I'm trying to get my little money.
That's what they call it.
Man, you ain't got no bigger goals than that?
So they
that's what they want to do. They call it 703.
703.
You get that 703, and once you're approved, you're good, and it goes with you. I knew some guy, it goes with you wherever state you go once you're approved. I knew a guy from Memphis, Tennessee that, you know, I mean, out there in Memphis, you know, they ain't giving you nothing like that unless you know, you would got to be in a wheelchair.
Yeah, you ain't getting shit.
So what he did is he literally moved out here, lived here because his situation took a little time because he had a substance abuse issue. He literally moved out here until he got approved. He's probably here for 5 or 6 years. Literally moved back to Tennessee within 48 hours of getting approved.
And got the same amount of money.
Well, cost of living, I don't know. You know what I mean? Because cost of living is a little, but, you know, here's what you can do, though. You know, there's gimmicks. You know, you could live with your family and not be even registered in that state. You can still act like you live in Minnesota because it's direct deposit.
Right, yeah.
I got a family member that's on that disability and EBT, and he lives in Vegas.
Damn.
But what he does is he just stays at them extended stays in Las Vegas. So what he'll do is he's acted like he's a resident of Minnesota.
Okay.
So he'll come back because you got to renew it every couple years.
And he'll just come back and just get it going.
He'll come back, renew it, stay out here for a couple months, and then go right back.
I couldn't do that.
You know,
bro.
and you couldn't do it, but you could do it if you was a lame.
I mean,
if you was a lame, you're seeing that free $800 a month. You're not seeing. You have no ambition. You have to understand. You have no ambition. Your only real goal is you just want to be a gangster. You know what I mean?
I was telling my grandma about that the other day. I told her, she said, well, they need to do something about the downtown Minneapolis. They need to do this in the cities. And I said, you got to understand. And I told her, I said, this is something that I realized. I said, it behooves white liberals to say, well, yeah, we want a bunch of foundational blacks owning businesses, building up a new Tulsa. Black folks, foundational blacks and descendants of slaves having businesses up and down Lake Street, up and down Cedar Riverside. They don't want that. I told her, I said they would much rather a bunch of broke ass niggas fighting and shooting downtown and doing this, that, and the third. It's cheaper. It's much cheaper to you know, you call it SSI reparations. They would much rather, as much as they say they don't. Me and you talked about this for well over 5 years. They keep talking about crime. Let me tell you something, man. I went to Boston. The issues that we have in downtown Minneapolis is nowhere remotely close in Boston. They don't even. Do you know you got to pay to take a piss? Like,
what do you mean?
You know how like downtown you just go, hey man, let me just go in this building or go to the bar. I mean, it used to be you just go in like, what's that arcade? Restroom. Pop's Arcade. You just go in and take a piss. Not in Boston. There's these little things that look like spaceships. I said, what is that? And they're like, oh man, you got to pay to take a piss. I said, what? It was like $5 to get in or something. Basically, they got it to where you're down there to spend money. And the brother told me they'll pull up on you. The police will be like, hey, man, what you doing? Oh, I'm waiting on the bus. Okay, when I come back around, you better be gone.
Well, you got to understand, there's a lot in the East Coast, man. There's a lot of aggressive homelessness as well.
They don't play, bro. They don't play. Like the stuff that goes on, like I was having a discussion. I said, look at Chicago. You know, the conservatives, the white conservatives always say, well, yeah, you know, you talking about white supremacy, but look at Chicago. Look at all this black on black crime. You're killing each other. They always use that talking point. Chicago is 10 times bigger than Minneapolis. They don't even have an issue like we do. And I ain't saying they don't have a shooting here and there downtown, but you know they don't tolerate that shit, bro. We're the only city probably in America where we have shootouts every single weekend. Every weekend,
Murderapolis. But we getting the worst. So you understand. So think of it like this. That mentality you're talking about that you couldn't have, think of someone that has that mentality and is moving to Minnesota.
Right. Oh,
you know what I mean? There's a certain level of ignorance. So this is the same person that's moving somewhere where he can get $800 free every month. Think of that. So think of that mentality. Now put a gun in his hand. You're automatically a lame when you're a young person and your goal is to get on disability.
Right. Damn, I can't imagine being young and that's the goal? That's crazy.
Oh, yeah, shit. You spend enough time here in the sewer neighborhood, you'll see it. That's it.
I mean, as we just spoke, I just applied for an IT position. We were just talking. You probably didn't know it. I was sitting there. I just applied for a position. I can't, fam. I guess I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe it's my upbringing. I gotta have more. I can't wait for that 800. I can't. I gotta get
800 a month. Just think of that.
That's like my car note and some groceries. Like, I don't know, bro.
That's nothing. But okay, but think of it like this. Okay, you don't have any of that. Think if you don't have no car note, you don't have no credit, you don't have no family, you know what I mean? So the average dusty nigga really doesn't spend that much money.
Right.
That's the one thing that gives them a little advantage, and it's hard to bust them and shit. The average, like them guys with the Rico, they're spending money, but I promise you, a lot of their money they're spending is where they're hustling out of. So if they're hustling out of a bar, they're spending majority of that money back in the bar.
Damn.
You feel what I'm saying? They're going to the Nike outlet, buying some kicks, buying his bitch something. Most hustlers are not doing anything that would lead to intangibles. Nothing. They're not investing the money in the stock market. They're not, trying to wash their money. They're not doing any of that. You know what I mean? They're just spending it on bullshit. So what happens is there's no money stacked. Like even homeboy that has a lawyer. So out of 250 people that got RICOs for selling drugs and doing all this, only one or two of them could actually afford a lawyer. Because realistically, to fight a case like that, you need to have about 100 grand put up.
Right.
And that might not even be enough.
No. Nah. For
most hustlers, they ain't thinking about getting caught.
Well, this dude must have thought he got a
put
lawyer.
up.
He must have knew maybe I don't know if he got tipped off, but he must have knew. He was like, man, okay, let me take this 100 grand and bring it to Mr. Goats.
Not only that, though, but with this being a high-profile case, you're going to have some defense lawyers that are going to take the case for cheap.
Because they know
because
if they
want their name in the news.
Right.
No, not just that. It's not even about knowing they can beat it. It's about having their name in the paper. Like, because I mean, if you're an up-and-coming attorney and you're trying to get yourself out there, you need to be in some high-profile cases. You need your name in the newspaper every day. And then lo and behold, maybe you beat it. Now you put on.
So Crump, let's just use him as an example. Crump been in so many high-profile cases. Whether he wins or loses, when he gets on your case, he's not taking your case. If he don't think he could get a couple million out of the case, he's not taking it.
No, Crump is not going to get involved unless him and his team sit back, assess the situation, and see a bag. Is there a bag here? There's no bag. I ain't coming. I don't know nothing about that.
Well, the race soldier that choked the brother and all them immigrant coons that was on that subway. Now, you do know that the race soldier, we found out his name. The media was hiding him to the very end until I think there was a white lady that said, yeah, I went to school with this motherfucker. He's always been scary. He's always been a race soldier. His dad is a cop.
What was the homeless man in the subway station saying?
What they're alleging, first, they're using the narrative that he threatened people. That's what they're saying.
Did he threaten anybody's life? Did he say, I will kill you, I will kill everybody in this motherfucker?
They're saying that he said something like that.
Because homeless people tend to say, well, hey, guess what? If that's the case, because homeless people will say shit like that. If he said some shit like, I'll kill everybody in here, I'll blow this motherfucker up, then you know what? He deserved it. I don't give a fuck who you are. I don't care. You're not, say DP is in the subway station with his son and his wife, and take race out of it for a second, and some niggas just sitting up there talking about everybody in here finna get killed. I'm killing every motherfucker. You might hem him up, choke his ass up too. So let's be real about things, okay? We have to know what was said.
Other people are saying he was just hungry.
Then the white dude was totally in the wrong, and this needs to be charged as a hate crime.
But here's the thing: this dude was a Marine, for one. Number two,
who?
This white dude that choked him out, he was a Marine.
Oh, see, that's part of the reason why they looking after him.
Okay, and then on the top of the fact, his dad is a cop.
There you go.
Now look, the entire media, not just one, not two, the entire media hid this dude's name until I think it was a white lady to say, yeah, I remember him from high school. People were scared of him. He was a scary dude. He wasn't a good guy. So then once they got his name out, that's when the news started hitting against the black media. Tariq been staying on their ass for, brother Tariq, he's on, that brother really be putting in a lot of work. He found out, he's been trying to find out the name, and somebody gave up the name. So now that he gave up the name, that's when the mainstream got behind him, like, oh yeah, we found the name. Now the mainstream is saying that people were telling him on the subway, there's witnesses that were saying, you're going to kill him. And he wouldn't listen. So now this is a Chauvin situation almost. Hey, you're going to kill him. You're going to kill him. They kept telling him, you're going to kill him. It was two coons that sat there and watched it. There was a few immigrant coons that just sat there and watched it. And it was another guy that held his hand. So let's say if I'm choking you, bro. If I'm choking you. And then another dude is holding your arms. That's accomplice to the murder. So folks are trying to find out his name. So a lot of the underground black media, like Tariq and them, they've been kind of calling out a lot of the foundationals and the non-foundationals in New York. Like, hey, man, y'all niggas got to start putting hands on these motherfuckers. You don't just let nobody choke nobody black out. You had a situation where there was now here's another thing. The people could say, even if he was saying he was going to do something to somebody, he was autistic. So now, under the law, this Michael Jackson kid, the Michael Jackson dude.
Hey, it doesn't matter. You don't know that.
No, he don't. No, it's documented. It's documented. He's autistic. He's autistic.
Okay, he's autistic, but if you're sitting at the subway and he's threatening your life, how are you going to know he's autistic?
No, you're not. But the bottom line is, bro, remember, even if it's a disabled dude, if you beat his ass, your charges, bro, is going to be higher than if you just beat my ass. You see what I'm saying? You're going to get charged with, I don't know what the law is, but it's something where if you do something to someone that's disabled, and disabled doesn't just mean autistic. It means somebody with AIDS, somebody with cancer, somebody with diabetes. Like, that's considered to be disabled. The charges go higher. So we're not just looking at okay, what did he say? We're not just looking at that. We're looking at the stuff behind it, because the thing is NYPD has a history. Okay, here's another example. There was a special needs child. There was some Hispanic race soldiers that were on the subway, and they recorded it. They were beating this black kid up badly. He was autistic. Now you can look at this kid and see, if somebody, how me and you are, how we grew up. You put your hands on me or you getting the beats. It's just right. That's just how it goes. That's our natural reflex. You put your hands on me and I'm putting a foot up your ass, and that's just not because you just deserve to get your ass whooped. You gonna get your ass whooped because we're programmed like that. You hit us, we putting a foot in your ass. It's just natural. Right. This kid, you could see he wasn't really trying to fight back. He was just trying to run. You could kind of tell, like, okay, this is an innocent kid. You know that whatever reason they're beating him, he didn't do nothing to nobody. You could just look at a kid. He was like maybe 15, 16, 14. You could tell, like, he wasn't really cognizant of what was going on. He was just trying to get away. They grabbed him and they were dragging him. That's kidnapping. Now, that's kidnapping. When you grab somebody and somebody's trying to get away, that's kidnapping.
Yeah.
Now, these are Hispanics. This is your so-called black and brown. That's why I ain't with this black and brown bullshit. This is your so-called black and brown coalition. AOC ain't said nothing. The coon-ass mayor ain't said nothing. The coon-ass DA in New York ain't said nothing. And so a lot of folks like Tariq and the black media, they've been kind of calling foundationals out. And and immigrant blacks still out there saying, hey, you niggas in New York got to get on business. Y'all sitting there just letting shit, you letting motherfuckers on the subway just jump on black folks. You see what I'm saying? Like, man, let me tell you something. If I'm walking down the street, bro, and I see 5 race soldiers, 5 dudes. Now, if they're police, it's different. But if it's 5 dudes, and I'm hearing them say something, oh, yeah, you black bastard or whatever, they kicking a dude, man, I'm jumping in that shit, bro. I don't care what the nigga did. Of course. I'm jumping because that could be me. Because we know that race soldiers, they look at a fair fight, and that's what Tucker Carlson was talking about. They look at a fight like, okay, it's 10-on-1. That's a fair fight. Do you know, bro? Like, and I was gonna play this video, and I don't want to miss that. Remind me in a little while to get into the alligator bait in a minute. I want to get into that concept, alligator bait. They look at as like you see a lot of these attacks of women, black children, soft targets, anybody that they could say, well, okay, this person can't really fight back. Yeah, people say, well, that wasn't no white supremacists, that was black and brown, that was brown people. No, because we know that a lot of the Latinos envision themselves from the Spanish conquistadors. They look at themselves as honorary whites. They attacked that autistic kid on the subway because he was black. They were calling